I'm Steph Garcia Psychos.
And I'm Trevor Psychos.
And welcome to our podcast where we have deep conversations with interesting people who are doing everything it takes to go after their dreams.
Rock and roll. That's all I can think.
So, our first episode, we're joined by the one and only Ryan Atkins. Have you ever beaten Ryan in a WTM?
Not even close.
It was a great conversation. We for our first guest, I feel like he really brought the heat for sure.
Yeah, we talked about the Iditarod and his future plans and his coaching, and also we go into the little post with what's his name again? The other guy.
With me. No offense to me. No offense, BJ.
Sorry, I don't keep up.
He's not a Spartan guy. Don't be offended. Yeah, I thought, you guys got really nerdy about all of the Iditarod stuff. I was trying to kind of dig a little more into how Ryan even got into cycling and that kind of sport. I guess if you're Canadian, what else are you going to do, right?
Yeah, a lot of good input on gear and strategy and also dealing with the cold and stuff like that in the podcast. Stuff I struggle with.
Stuff we want to know about. Yeah. Stuff that I wanted to know about, I dug in, I asked. There was no big announcement between him and Lindsay of having a baby. I remember everyone got all excited last year when Lindsay kind of hinted at that when she said she wasn't going to be racing much, although she is. So we're excited for her, for them. And yeah, I thought it was really interesting, his take on his post after the St. Louis Obispo Spartan, the first in this new North American Elite Series. Reading it, I don't know Ryan as well as you do, but I read that and I wasn't sure what he was trying to say. I know he was trying to, spark conversation about how Spartan can improve and be more fan-friendly and more challenging for the elites. But a lot of people took that in a way to say he didn't win, he's bitter, what's going on?
So he explains it very well. So listen.
Yeah, so listen, that's it. This was a great start. Excited to bring more interesting people in. The title of the podcast is All It Takes Is All You Got, because really that's like our life philosophy is, when you want something, you go after it with everything, and if you give it all, usually you get it. Let's bring in our first guest. You guys might have heard of him. You might have not. He is a big-time OCR athlete. Let's see some stats. 2021 Spartan World Champ after finishing second 5 times. Fun fact. 2-time Spartan Ultra 24-hour champion. 6-time World Toughest Mudder champion. He has never lost an obstacle course race over 8 hours in duration. Wow, that's insane. Mechanical engineer, avid mountain biker, mountaineer, skier, all-around adventure athlete, and person. Ryan Atkins, thank you for joining us.
In person. Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me, and congratulations on tying the knot and finding each other. It's awesome.
Yeah, that was the easy part.
Yeah, dealing with his dog is actually the hardest part, really. But anyway, Ryan, thank you so much for joining us. We are here to talk about your most recent race, which was not a Spartan race.
Mm-hmm.
Trevor, take it away.
Yeah, it was the Iditarod.
Yeah.
So how'd you find that? How'd you get into it?
I don't know. I've always kind of I don't know when I heard about the Iditarod. It might have been kind of like when I was researching just hard races and came across stuff like World Toughest Mudder, and I saw Iditarod. It seems just like such an iconic idea to race the Iditarod Trail that the dog sled teams, historically have done and raced across, and it just seemed like a really kind of simplistic but beautiful race. So it's always appealed to me, but it's always been conflicting of some kind of Spartan race or some silly February, March event that I had going on. So this year I was kind of I'm just going to do it because I don't know, life's too short to just have these things floating over your head and just always put them off. So yeah, I just kind of I've done a lot of fat bike expeditions, and I had won one of the qualifier fat bike races. So I contacted the organizer, kind of like gave him my adventure credentials and experience, and they let me in. It's like an invitational race, so you actually have to have you have to qualify for it before they can let you do it. Because unlike a lot of winter ultras, there's no real safety net. There's no mandatory gear list. It's kind of up to, they figure like if you've qualified for it that you know what you're doing. So it's like up to you to go
That's
there
nice. I like
figure
that.
it out.
Yeah. List. I hate when
Yeah.
they like. but so was it longer than the ride you did? You did a big fat bike ride like what, last year before with Eric Batty?
Yeah. It was, I guess, yeah, it was shorter than that, but I mean, I did it in like 2 and a bit days, whereas that was like a 10 or so day expedition. So definitely a different pace. Like I barely slept on this one and stuff, and just kind of went through it. So yeah, I guess harder physically because no rests.
Okay, let's back it up a second. How did you even get into biking, cycling? I always say the wrong thing. How did this even start? When did you first get your butt on a bike?
I started mountain biking when I was like 12 or 13 years old, actually. I went to like a mountain bike camp and I loved it, and I just kind of fell in love with it. I think I really liked like the technical aspect. And it's funny because I actually used to kind of make fun of like all the like the people who did like cross country races and like endurance sports. I was like, that is so lame. I just want to ride my bike off like little cliffs and like take it down gnarly trails. That's all I want to do. And I was like, who are these guys in the spandex like working really hard in the uphills? I was like,
you have to wear spandex though.
That's stupid. And now that's me. That's like my whole life is just like, how fast can you go up hills? So it's kind of like ironic, I guess, that's had that quantum shift. But yeah, from there I raced mountain bikes like when I was in university and stuff, and after a bit before transitioning to running in OCR.
Okay, but
you went pro, right, in mountain biking?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, I'm still backing up a little bit. So, but for this mountain bike camp that you said you went to, was this your idea, or were your parents like, Ryan, get out of here, go to this thing, and you were kicking and screaming?
No, I mean, it was kind of like they were like, here's this thing that you can do in the summer, and I think I had a friend who had signed up for it. It seemed cool. I don't know. I didn't really like know a whole lot about it other than like, and I liked to ride my mountain bike at the time, but I guess just like going out with your friends at like a local, a little trail system is a little different than like going to like an actual ski resort and like riding up and down like gnarly trails.
Was this before or after unicycling?
This is before I started unicycling. So yeah, that was kind of like got into mountain biking, and then I was like, well, let's try one wheel for a while. Kind of made that transition and jump. Yeah.
But what kind of athlete were you growing up? What would you say was your first like athletic endeavor?
Yeah, so growing up, I played hockey like most Canadians, and then I played rugby and football and wrestling and all those things. Never a lot of. I always kind of like ran, but it was just kind of like random. I would just like go out and run for half an hour, and I don't really know why or how, but I would never ran on any cross country teams or anything like that. But yeah, I just
you wear like the garbage bag to like run and lose weight for wrestling kind of thing.
I did do that once or twice. Yeah, it's pretty awful.
Yeah, exactly. Like right before ran.
Yeah, it's like so unhealthy. Like looking back at it.
Did you ever run in basketball shorts like I did in my first Worlds?
Maybe, probably.
Okay, well, back to Iditarod. So for people here who have no idea what the heck you're talking about, like, can you give us a little bit more background about this race and what intrigued you about it?
Yeah, so the Iditarod Trail is like a trail from Anchorage to Nome. It's about 1,000 miles along the Alaskan coast, and it was done in like the early 1900s as like a relay on dog sleds in a diphtheria I guess outbreak in one of these small communities to get the vaccine up to save a bunch of kids' lives.
There's a Disney movie about that, wasn't there?
There's a few Disney movies and various things all about it. And so like, but to this day, there's like the trail and like the route that they went is still a thing. And every year they race it with dog sleds. They actually race it. They do the race I did, which is called the Iditarod Trail Invitational, which you can do on a bike, you can do running, or you can do skiing. And I chose to do it on a bike. And then there's a 350-mile version and a 1,000-mile version. So I did the 350, which you have to do first before you're allowed to do the 1,000-mile. And there's actually a snowmobile race on the same trail, like a week before we did ours, where they actually go there and back. So yeah, it's very like Alaskan cultural. It's a pretty cool scene up there, and it's like a really big deal in Alaska.
So was
yeah,
the trail pretty groomed because the race prior?
kind of. It's very transient. The trail, like it's always changing. It's always kind of like being moved around across different lakes, and it's just kind of like the way the ITI works is you just have to get from checkpoint to checkpoint. It doesn't actually matter how you go. So sometimes it makes more sense to take like different trails, or if there's been like overflow, which is like when the water comes up over the ice, then you don't want to fall into that. So like you might go a different route or something like that. So there is a bit of a navigational aspect to it as well as like just getting through it. So it's a lot of different aspects, which I found cool. It's like winter survival, it's endurance, it's route finding, and it's got like that historical element. So ticked a lot of boxes.
Let's start with your gear, because I know you're smart with that.
Yeah. So yeah, there's no gear list, no mandatory gear list. You just have to carry the spot tracker they give you, and like they said, a mask was mandatory, because if you go into checkpoints, they wanted you to have a mask on.
We need it anyways because of the wind, right? So
yeah, exactly. It was actually kind of like nice to have. I brought a 0-degree Fahrenheit sleeping bag, which I never ended up using. And then I brought, I mean, just like typical winter gear. I brought like a closed cell foam rolled up pad and a bivy all together in like a big thing, so I could just like roll it out really quickly if I had to like sleep on the trail. And then just like tons of food, tons of snacks, lots of. I had like down pants and a big down jacket, because whenever I've done like winter expeditions, I found that like having really warm down clothing to change into at camp was like really critical. So like after you finish riding for the day, you would like basically take everything off, strip down naked, and put on like your down, like basically full down suit, and then you're just like way more comfortable than kind of shivering, running around, trying to do other stuff. So I brought that, and then I brought like a muskrat fur hat, which I wore for basically most of the race.
One's little ear flaps.
Yeah, with the little ear flaps and the little thing you can put down over your eyes. Yeah, it's
nice.
as like kind of goofy as they are. Like, there's a reason why I guess they're kind of classic, because they really work and they keep you warm. So I wore that. No one really wears helmets in this race, because like
safety. Come on.
Yeah, you're on snow though, so like you might as well be like cross country skiing. Like there's nothing to really hit if you fall, other than like snow or ice. So it's no helmet, and big pogies on your handlebars, which are like kind of these giant. It's like just these big foam and like fabric insulated covers that go over the ends of your grips and your handlebars, and then you put your hands into those, and that just keeps your hands warm. Hands and feet are like a big issue for biking, so then they make fat bike like expedition boots with like clipless pedals, so I wore those, and those are pretty awesome.
Were they clip in or just stand on?
Yeah, you clip in and away you go. So yeah, lots of really like specific gear. And then like we were on fat bikes, so I had like 5-inch tires. I had like studded tires, because there's a lot of like you'll be riding across like sheer ice lakes and things like that for a while. But
when you say winter survival gear, it makes me think like you did a Revenant and like cut open a horse's stomach to sleep in or something. So I'm a little bummed that you're talking about this down gear that you had. Like,
yeah.
no,
It was pretty. I mean, we didn't see any polar bears. We didn't see any. It was pretty. It was. It was good. I mean, all the things that like you prepare for, we didn't like really have to, worry about that much. It was a bit of a warmer year. I think it only got down to about -20 Fahrenheit or so. So like not that cold, and yeah, so it was good.
Let's talk. I want to just ask the last thing about nutrition, because you mentioned lots of snacks. Like, what does Ryan Atkins, what works for your stomach in a situation like that?
Well, I'm pretty good with my stomach, what I can handle, but I'm also pretty good with like biking, because you're not like running, so you can actually like eat more. So the biggest thing is just kind of dealing with palate fatigue. I actually ate a lot of like chews and gummies, and then some of those like peanut butter filled pretzels, PB&J sandwiches. Yeah, like all sorts of different, some chocolate, but not like a lot. And then inside my my merino wool base layer, I sewed like these 3 kind of pockets inside that like sat right against my stomach, and I would just keep water and food in those, so I like looked like I had this giant gut.
That's
But
smart.
it like it kept everything warm, and it kept everything from freezing. So I would just every couple hours I would like load that back up with food, and then you would just ride and kind of keep it warm. Otherwise, you have to be careful when it's really cold about like cracking your teeth on certain foods, like chocolate or things like that. That'll get really hard, and then like you can't really eat it.
Did Lindsay bake you anything? Anything from the upcoming bakery?
No real good bake treats. It was a bit tough. So we actually had 2 drop bags, which you had to mail like 2 or 3 weeks in advance. So those were just filled with like kind of like just gummies, and like you couldn't really put anything that was like perishable, because you had to mail them so far in advance. So then a lot of the food was just like kind of standard endurance food, so like a bunch of maple syrup and things like that. It was just like a big variety, and it worked pretty well for me. I didn't get too much palate fatigue by the end. I mean, by the end I was definitely like tired of eating the stuff, but I basically rode for like 2 and a bit days, almost straight, and you're eating the whole time, so it worked out well for me.
Did you gain any weight or anything?
No.
When I rode the Oregon coast, I gained weight. It was like I was eating like I was running, and just
You're like, oh, mama. That's
I
awesome.
I fatter than I
Yeah, biking's funny like that. You can just take in tons of food. It's great.
So you didn't sleep at all?
I think I maybe slept for 20 minutes at one of the checkpoints. Yeah.
Your finish time was 50 something hours?
Yeah, 2 days and 8 hours.
2 days and 8 hours.
Yeah.
And what was historic about this was there was a tie.
Yeah. So me and a guy named Tyson, he's won it in the past. We ended up riding the last like 30 or so hours together. He just kind of like sat on my wheel most of the way through, and I was like, I'm gonna set a solid tempo, but I'm not gonna like, I don't know, it just felt weird to like attack someone out there and like throw surges in. So I was just like, I'm just gonna like go, and if he gets dropped, then so be it. And if he wants to attack me and race, then I'm game. But he just kind of like was happy to sit on and have someone to ride with. And then when we were rolling into town, he said like, dude, I've drafted you for the last like day. Like if you deserve to take the win. And I was like, it's okay, let's just finish together. So that's pretty cool of him. And yeah, it was awesome. I think it was cool.
Yeah. Well, what is the like culture of that like then? Just is that normal in other cycling races you've done?
So it's happened at this race before, because it does set you up for like traveling together, just because it's so long and like isolated, I guess. So I had heard that this had happened. I was actually on the bus on the way to the start with a guy who was like, yeah, I co-won the running event 3 years ago. And I was like, oh, that's an option. So I was kind of like locked it away in the back of my mind. And then when the time came, I was like, yeah, why not?
It's like those multi-day races, like you're out there for more than like one day. People kind of just connect and run together
Yeah,
for a while, you know.
Look, you guys,
Like,
yeah,
I just always run with people
my
in my
races are 10 minutes or less, so there is
yeah.
no time to be nice to people. So
No time to get to know your competitors.
so cutthroat.
I'm cutthroat. I'm cutthroat. So anyway, this is all new
That's
to
awesome.
me. Other than that, was there any other race strategy that you went into? What was going through your mind in like the most brutal moments where it's dark and freezing and you're out of your little pouch food? Like what was going through your mind?
It's like most races, you're just concentrating on like the here and now. It's kind of like what's coming up next. Where should I be riding on this trail that's like the firmest? What should I eat next? What's going on? I mean, there are like monotonous moments, I guess, out there, but for the most part, I guess it's nothing that like groundbreaking. I guess you get time to yourself to think about, life and all those wonderful things. But yeah, I don't know. That's a good question. I don't know.
Do you have any down moments? Like,
Um, yeah, I think. Well, I guess to answer your question, like my strategy was just to like to go out and uh take it really easy the first day, kind of like stay really with myself, not ever get out of my comfort zone, and then kind of see how I felt in terms of sleeping. And I was planning on like not sleeping a lot, but I also hadn't done any events, any like 24-hour races or longer in since COVID had started. So I wasn't really like familiar with how my body would react, as far as like the sleep deprivation went, or just like the continuous calorie intake or anything like that. So I was just like play it by ear, and then I was like, if I feel good, then I'll like at some point push to the finish. But it's a big question mark because like out there, you might reach a point where all of a sudden you have to like push your bike for 30 miles, and that could take 20 hours or 15 hours or something like that. And so you're always kind of like, you always have these reserves. So like having the sleeping bag, having enough food on you at any moment to go for 20 hours, between like checkpoints or between anywhere, it's kind of like the name of the game. And you don't really know what you're going to encounter out there until you're on like the very end last part.
did you meet your goal, or what was your goal going in?
Well, I mean, I wanted to win, so yeah, I guess so.
Do you have
Check that
a
box.
time hack? Like I always have a time hack on something like that.
No time, because it's like the record for this trail or the race is like one day, like 14 hours. But like apparently that year it was just like rock hard snow the whole way, and they
Yeah,
just
conditions
cruised.
like that.
Yeah, so it's very condition dependent. And they've had years where that race has taken the winner 4 days, and they've had to push for 2 days.
Like
So it's
300
like,
miles in the snow, you get windrows, you get all crazy. That'd be the worst
yeah,
week. You never know.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
but
Once you're off your bike pushing, it's pretty slow. And for the 1,000 mile, that's that's even more prevalent because they're kind of, once you get past McGrath, which is where my race finished, it's just a little less traveled until the dog sleds. The dog teams actually started about a week after our race, so they start catching the 1,000-mile people um, about a week and a half into like their race. So once the dog sleds start going through, then if like there's really deep, heavy snow, it starts getting beaten down a little bit better. But like again, you don't know. It can blizzard and dump 2 feet of snow, and then you might just have to like walk.
Wouldn't that make, I mean, I don't know if this, I'm asking, did this happen to you? And does this happen to you in any of these other long endurance races? Do you ever just get that like delirium where you're like seeing things, or is that a product of like bad nutrition? Because I'm thinking if I was in that 1,000-mile race and those dogs came up on me, I would have a freak out because I'd probably be so delirious.
Yeah, I mean, there was a little bit of hallucinations for myself towards
Anything
the end of the
cool?
races.
Just kidding.
Not really, just like really basic stuff. Like I would see, like I think I'd see stuff in the snow. Something that really happens to me a lot is I'll see like buildings in the forest, but it'll just be like a tree. Or at one point I saw like a tree, but I was convinced it was like a boat, just like in the woods. And you're like riding along, and you're like, why is there a boat in the woods? And this is like so confused, right? But like there could be, I guess, like a random boat somewhere, or it could be like a plane crash or something. But then you get closer and you kind of like close your eyes a few times, and then you realize it's just a branch. So stuff like that.
I did that in Nepal. I went up to a giant rock and thought it was a house.
Yeah, totally.
It didn't dissolve until I was like almost there and knock on the door, and then
Yeah.
gone.
Yeah, when I did the 46er record here in the Adirondacks, I saw a stump and I was convinced it was a German Shepherd, and I like walked up to it and I started petting it, and then I realized that it was just a stump of wood, and I was like, why am I petting this like stump? And it was just like in a forest. Super funny.
Worst thing about Scotland is like I ran over so many cattle guards on the road. Eventually, all the tree shadows cast over the freaking road became cattle guards, and like,
right, and you're like
throwing around these
tiptoeing
shadows, like whatever.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
now that that's under your belt, are you planning on doing the 1,000-miler in the future?
I would love to. I don't know if I'll do it next year, but definitely some year. I think it would be awesome. I think also it'd be pretty fun to tackle the race in like the running or skiing mode of transport. But I mean, walking or running 1,000 miles in the snow sounds pretty hard. But yeah.
It does not sound like fun to me, but you guys are a unique breed. I mean, like you two.
I'm bored. I do that.
I mean, you run a mile, you run 10 miles, you run 100 miles, 1,000 miles. Like it's all just progressions. I guess.
Yeah, your
just distance.
Mechanical engineering brain probably breaks it down in some way like that.
Yeah.
But running in the snow is like running in the sand. I just don't want to do it.
I know.
Okay, well let's talk about the rest of your season. I know Lindsay is doing some exciting different races, not focusing 100% on OCR. What's your game plan?
Yeah, so I'm going to be doing. So I'm going to Switzerland to race the PDG in a few weeks, which is a skimo race. It's more just like a fun race for myself. I'm not trying to be competitive there or anything. Doing it, you have to do it with other people. So I'm actually doing it with Ian Hosek and Rhea's boyfriend, fiance, Roy.
Oh, Roy.
Yeah, and we're just kind of like, I don't know, just go do it and have a good time. It's like a really iconic skimo race. So I'm doing that, and then I'm doing a bunch of gravel races, some trail running races, and OCR. So I'm doing the North American series. I'll probably do Leadville running and biking this summer, which would be fun. And I don't know what else, but I'll kind of like take it as it goes. I'm going to race Unbound, which is a big 200-mile. It's kind of like the biggest gravel race in the world in Kansas.
Yep.
Do that in May, I think it is. Then some mountain bike races. So yeah, it'll be a pretty fun year for myself, and a lot of different exciting things. It's really fun to kind of using like running and cycling training to like try to like make them synergistic and kind of like help each other instead of like taking away. So I'm still kind of like working on like the best ways of doing that for myself. It's a little tricky sometimes, but it's pretty fun.
How did the pandemic kind of impact both you and Lindsay in terms of how you want to plan out this next phase of your life as athletes and as a couple?
Yeah, I think it definitely kind of gave a bit of an element of urgency, but also of like importance to our planning. Just like, what do you want to do? Like Iditarod was like a big kind of result of that. It was just like, we only have so many years of racing at a high level. So it was kind of like, I want to do the things that I really want to do. And I've kind of accomplished most of the things in OCR that I've wanted to do. So now I want to, which I still love doing, but now I want to branch out into different aspects of, fitness and of endurance sports and things like that. I think also it kind of, for me, it kind of, like, we learned a lot in terms of like training. And I think like one thing I learned was like being at home and having like an element of consistency was like really good for my training. Kind of like travel and things like that would always seem to like take away which I didn't really recognize before. So it was kind of cool to see like, oh, if I'm stuck at home for 4 months and all I do is train, it really pays off, which like it sounds obvious, but like also like there's this like mindset where you're like, no, I need to race, I need to like have these goals, but I'm very like a process oriented person where I just love the training and kind of like the getting ready for things, and very like self-motivated. So I don't like have that issue. If it was up to me, I would just like just train all the time.
Wow. What a nerd. I'm just kidding. No, well, okay. The other big thing that you've announced recently is your new coaching business.
Yep.
Give us a little insight. Why launch that? Why now? And like how all these things you just talked about, how the pandemic taught you stuff about your training. How are you translating that into now working with clients?
Yeah, so basically me and the guy who does Lindsay and my kind of sports psychology, Graham, we decided to launch a training program. And I basically asked myself kind of like, what if I was starting out my athletic career, what do I think in hindsight would be the most beneficial thing to me as like an athlete in that time frame? And so that's kind of like what I structured the coaching model off of. So it's kind of like really different from most other offerings, and it's so the way it works basically is you have like, I've got 3 levels of like training. So people sign up, there's like an online platform, and it's kind of like a community platform. And every week I release these 3 levels, and they're kind of like advanced, intermediate, beginner. And that's just like, and the training is very similar. It's just like one will be like 7 sets, one will be like 6, and one will be 4. One will have, so 1 week will be, like the highest week is usually around 15 hours of training. The medium one's like 12, and like the lower one is like, 8 or 9. And that's with like all the strength and the cross training and stuff like that in there. So then on top of that, there's kind of like this platform where people can talk to themselves within the community. I release all these, like, we call it training toolbox, where I like explain why you're doing this workout, why you're doing the VO2 max workout, like how it's going to benefit you. Or I'll talk about like, findings in research and how I'm like incorporating that into the training plan or things like that. So like my goal is that the athletes, because like I'm also realistic, I guess, and like most people who like find a coach will have a coach for a year, 2, 3, 4 maybe, but then they move on. So I'm not like expecting, even if I had we do some one-on-one coaching, but like that's not the focus. So I'm not expecting these people to like stay with the program forever, but I want them to learn and be able to either like self-coach themselves one day, or be able to learn enough that they can make informed decisions, within their athletic path going forward. So that's kind of like the goal of the whole coaching platform. And it's not like I want people to question the program. I want people to say like, why am I running for 3 hours on Saturday? Like, what is this going to give me? Or like, why am I doing, intervals on Tuesday? And then I'm going to say like, this is the reason. And then I want them to say like, but I'm actually doing this other event. Maybe I should like do this other interval structure. And then like, that's my goal, is for them to be like, it's kind of like a self-destructive platform, because I like want people to not need it, if that makes sense. So yeah, that's kind of like, and then with the whole sports psychology side of things, Graham is always posting videos or like self-reflection questions or things like that for people to hopefully try to like discover their motivations or their, just everything behind why they're doing what they're doing and like what it's going to lead them to.
So it's like website based, and once you become a member, then it's like a spider web. You can go and kind of just move around to
exactly.
Or
yeah, and like if you're like, the other day someone was like, I want to buy a new sport watch. What do you guys recommend? And like 4 or 5 of the members chimed in with like what they used and why they liked it, and so then they were like able to kind of like network. So it's kind of like yeah, it's kind of like you said, like a spider web, and it's like as useful or like valuable as people kind of make it. So
Who are
there's
the other
like,
members?
huh?
Well, it's the people who like
Oh, is it
the
just
people who
you
are
and
coaching,
your
yeah.
guy?
It's
The only people right
me and
now?
Graham, and then all the members of the people who are like
The
in the
Oh,
athletes.
okay.
program. Yeah, all the athletes.
I was just asking about other pro athletes if you have them on or whatever.
Yeah, you gonna bring anyone else in? Do a little cameo?
Like as coaches,
Sure.
yeah. I mean, it's only started in like mid-December, so it's still kind of pretty new and growing and stuff. But yeah, that's
I
a
have
good
a
idea.
question for both of you. So you mentioned that you are doing a little bit of one-on-one coaching.
Yeah.
How would you guys both feel about that idea of like you could be training your next competitor, like someone who's going to come and be the next Ryan Atkins, the next Trevor Psychos? How would you feel like knowing you're giving them the tools to come and surpass you one day?
Toolbox up here.
Yeah, I think it's great. I think every resource that I've ever had or like had access to is available in some way, shape, or form to like everyone else. So that by coaching people, I might be like giving them shortcuts or giving them intuition that I had to learn over years. But I also think that if someone beats me at a race, it's not like really because I like said, oh, do this one workout and you'll be like the greatest. Like there's so much more to it than that, I guess. So I think competition is competition, and like I'm fine with that.
Physical aspects, like maybe half the game, I guess.
Yeah. It's the hustle. It's the mental side.
Yeah, totally. There's a lot of like you can tell someone to do something, and it doesn't mean that their results are going to be the same as yours or things like that.
Well, I have so many other questions. I'll try and keep this brief. So, couple more logistical questions. Are we ever going to see you at WTM again? Trevor really wants to know.
I hope so. I mean, Florida doesn't sound that inspiring.
It's technically Alabama this year.
Yeah, listen.
I'm gonna die.
We got to do some humidity camp for Trevor.
Yeah. I mean, I would love to. I think it would have to be like the right location and the right timing in terms of like other goals and events that I have kind of going on. But yeah,
so Mark, definitely 115. What do you think now? Think 120 is possible?
Yeah, maybe
on that course, probably. I don't know.
Yeah, a flat course like that.
He lapped me in 4 hours. He was insane.
Awkward.
Yeah.
Well, you got to race Mark. I'm sure you've raced him before in Spartan, but you raced him just a little while ago in San Obispo.
Totally. Yeah, Mark's awesome. I really like him.
So how I'm switching gears here back to like personal life stuff. How do you and Lindsay enjoy training together? You posted a cute video she did the other day of doing like planks together, core
like
thing. Like
fighting each other.
How does it work together?
Yeah, we actually probably do like maybe 30% of our training together, I'd say. And then like usually if it lines up and we can run or bike or do strength training together, then great, and we'll do it and we'll find a way to make it work. But it's also like we also recognize that a lot of times our paces are different and things like that, and we're totally fine with that. But we also like support each other. Like I'll drive to town and drop her off or pick her up or like do point to points or things like that, and her with me too and stuff. So it's always, and that's kind of like a give and take. And the other thing that having a partner who is an athlete really facilitates is just like that recognition of the like selfishness, I guess, of training. So it's like, oh, I had to do whatever, a 6-hour bike ride today. I'm basically going to be useless in every capacity other than that. So it's like, you're probably going to have to make dinner for me, and like, you're probably going to have to vacuum, and like I might be able to feed the dog and take him for a walk, but that's about it. Or like, and vice versa. And it's like a give and take. And some days that's her and I'm doing all the other stuff. So it's, that's really nice. Whereas I think if you had a partner who wasn't doing the same things as you or having the same like depth of understanding of like what you're putting yourself through, then it would just seem a little more one-sided.
You know, it's interesting in the track world that we always see with track couples. There's always someone who's like crushing it and like making world teams or Olympic teams. And then there's always the other partner who's like dealing with an injury or who's having a little bit of a down year. Do you find
Right.
that you guys are at all like that? Or is it different because you both do so many different disciplines?
Yeah, I don't think it's, I mean, we have had moments where we, like, one of us has been down. But normally, like, we're both pretty good at, like, I guess, yeah, just helping each other in terms of like injuries or injury prevention, or like a lot of times Lindsay will tell me things like, you're doing too much, you're going to get burnt out. And like, it's good to
But do
have
you
that.
listen?
Yeah, I try to. It's good to have that perspective and like at least hear it, if you listen or not. So I think we help each other in that way, and we're pretty good at not, falling into that trap, I guess.
Well, when Lindsay announced last year that she was not going to be doing so much OCR, which she still is going to be, so, you know, but the big wave that went through the community was, oh my gosh, they're going to try and have a baby.
Right.
Obviously, she has a very jam-packed schedule, so, you know, I'm acknowledging that, but like, come on, Ryan, what's the plan here? Is there anything in the works?
Yeah, I mean, there's always stuff in the works. That is the end goal, I guess. But also, I think we're pretty, like, we recognize how like lucky we are to live the lifestyles that we do and stuff, and a little hesitant to like give that up in a way, especially for her as the female. So yeah, whether it's like this year or next year or at some point, yeah, but nothing in the oven. Yeah.
There's no big announcement yet that we're gonna
Yeah.
you're gonna spoil
No.
for you.
No, not yet.
Well, my last. Do you have any other? I have one more big question. Do you have anything?
Let's see.
Got notes.
You ask yours.
Well, I kind of want to wrap on this. So,
Oh, okay.
yeah.
Oh yeah, just off topic. You can do any mountaineering? Any goals like that?
Yeah. I'm like more interested in doing like, I guess, endurance, like mountaineering link ups. Like I think like biking 2 mountains and running them, and then like biking back or things like that. So probably erring on the side of like less technical mountaineering, but like still like, I don't know, still like 4th and 5th class, more endurance based, or like ultra technical, like scrambling kind of running, things like that for speed are kind of more at my forefront right now. I think a lot of the like technical stuff, I'd probably hold off a few years until I'm like doing less competing and stuff. But yeah, I mean, that's always something that I love doing, and especially like the winter stuff. I got to do a bunch of ice climbing this year, and I love it. And so, yeah.
Okay, well, I want to end on this. Ryan, because of who you are, anytime you put an opinion out there, you get so much feedback, positive and negative. People
Yeah.
love you or they love to rag on you. After St. Louis Obispo Spartan, you put out there that it was a runner's course. It wasn't like maybe it wasn't in the spirit of obstacle course racing. Maybe Spartan needs to like make some changes. And then, of course, everyone came after you and said, "Oh, it's because you didn't win," or "Oh, this
All
or
right.
that." So,
Yeah.
you know, tell us a little bit about your mindset behind that, and then obviously like how you handled the feedback.
Well, first of all, I think it's really funny because actually the whole incentive of that post I wasn't trying to complain. I was actually trying to, like, the issue that I see is that there's like Spartan isn't bringing in fans, nobody's watching the events, and so therefore there's no sponsors, because like people like Nicole and Ryan Kempson and Aaron are always complaining that like Spartan's not paying them, they don't want to pay for them to go to the events, they don't want to, and I'm like, well, that's not the issue. The issue is that nobody's watching, so there's no sponsorship, so there's no money, so there's no incentive to like have people at the events, and the whole elite side of things is kind of just rolling along in like a slowly decaying capacity. So I was like, how do we right that ship? And that's why I was asking, like, how do we make the sport more watchable? How do we make it better? Is it through more technical courses? Is it through harder obstacles? Is it through easier obstacles? I mean, like, I've been saying like harder obstacles for like 7 years, and I've totally come to terms with the fact that like I might never see that within Spartan within my career span, and I'm fine with that, like emotionally, whatever. Would I love to see heavy carries and hard obstacles? Would it suit me? Yeah, sure it would. But like that ship has sailed. I don't really care that much anymore. But I do care about the sport, and I want all these people to like keep competing, and I want Spartan to do well, and I want the elite side of sport to do well, and I want it to be watchable, and I want there to be 1 million views on the YouTube videos of the races, not 10 or 15,000, because I think that benefits everybody. So my whole comment was like, this was, in my opinion, like the least challenging course I've ever done in like a major series race, and I thought it was like boring as heck and not to the whole Spartan kind of like ethos or mentality that they've been like pushing from day one. So I guess that was like, and I actually like, if you read my post, I'm actually questioning, like I ask, I was like, what changes will it take to make the sport more watchable? And so yeah, I mean, that was the motivation of the post, and that was kind of like what I wanted to see. And of course, I guess I should have explained it better, because everyone was like, yeah, some people took it as complaining or as a negative perspective, but
I don't know, I agree with you on this. I think we need to combine the competitive side of Spartan with the production value of Tough Mudder and the difficulty of Battle Frog. Put them all three together, and that would be the perfect race right there.
Yeah, like how cool would it be if you had 3 athletes? One person's like a 14-minute 5K guy, one person's like a hunter, and one person's like, me or a VJ, and like the fast runner gets like a 30-second gap, and then he fails the hoist, so he has to do a 30-second penalty while Hunter comes and does it really fast, and then we get to the obstacle and everybody's together, and then I get a 10-second gap, and then the runner takes off again, and like all these like lead changes based on like physical abilities and strengths and stuff, I think would be really exciting to watch. And designing courses that like make those possible could be cool, because everybody has like a horse in the race too. Like you have like the runner community that's like, I want that guy to go really fast and win because he's a badass runner, and then you have like the CrossFit guys who are like, I want the big beefcake guy to come through and lift everything super fast. And then so yeah, I mean, I like that's what I think, but I also realize that like I'm wrong 99% of the time, so I was like trying to put that question out to the community. But,
well, you're just the kind of personality that if you say anything, people are going to take it as gospel, or they're going to take it as like, a big,
the wrong thing.
Yeah. So you were going to just lose no matter what you said.
Yeah, that's okay. I'm okay with that.
Well, Ryan, thank you so much for joining us on our
cheers, guys.
inaugural podcast. I mean, the vibe of this is this quote, all it takes is all you've got. And clearly you embody that like completely. We are so excited to keep following along with you this season, and hopefully see you in some races soon.
Yeah, sounds good. Thanks, guys. I'm honored to be number 1 on the podcast. That's awesome.
Number 1
Cool. Have a good night.
Bye.